The headline that brought you here sounds a bit like a telling off, doesn't it? I promise you it isn't one. Settle in, because by the time we're done, I think you'll feel lighter about the whole thing, not heavier. I'm Emma Becker, and if you're new, you may know my husband. He's the one behind the Dr. Becker channel. My corner is the broader, everyday body after 60, the aches, the 3 a.m. wakings, the energy that slipped off somewhere when you weren't looking. So grab something warm and pull up a chair. There's one ordinary nighttime habit quietly working against your middle, and once you can see it, it turns out to be one of the easier things to change. So let me start where the worry lives. There's a number that gets thrown around about a nighttime habit and belly fat, and it gets thrown around as if it were a stopwatch. Do this one thing after dark and your middle doubles. I want to be honest with you about that number right at the top because I'm not going to sell you a stopwatch. What the research actually shows is gentler and, frankly, more useful. It shows that a handful of ordinary evening habits, the big late dinner, the snacking after the kitchen's closed, the short, broken sleep, tend to nudge your body over months and years toward storing fat in one particular place. Not the fat you pinch, the fat you can't pinch. And here's what your last appointment didn't have the 12 minutes to tell you. It is almost never the thing you are handed a pamphlet about. It's a signal, and signals can be answered. Now, the credential question. I'm a researcher. I never stopped reading, that is, the whole credential. But I'll tell you the other reason I pay attention to this one. I'm a woman your age. I watch for these in my own body, at my own kitchen table, at 9 o'clock at night when the day's been long and the cheese and crackers are right there. So this isn't from a pedestal. This is woman to woman. Here's the promise. I'm going to show you exactly which nighttime habits quietly work against your middle, why they do it, in plain English, no jargon, left sitting there untranslated. And then the easy swap for each one. Small swaps, cheap ones, things you can start tonight without buying a single thing. And I'll tease this now. The one most people get wrong is number 4, the sleep one, and it's the one nobody warned you about. If you like this kind of thing, plain, honest, nobody selling you anything, go ahead and subscribe and stay a while. There's a free companion guide down in the description, no strings, no email gymnastics. Now, let's look at this together. Let me give you my honest opinion before I give you a single study, because I think you deserve to know where I stand. For years, I had belly fat after 60 filed under vanity. I thought of it as the thing women my age are made to feel bad about in dressing room mirrors, and I more or less decided I wasn't going to participate in that conversation, and I'm still not. Let me say that more carefully, because it matters. I am not here to talk to you about your dress size or your waistband or snapping anything back. I genuinely do not care about that, and neither should anyone who's actually looking out for you. What changed my mind on this topic was reading why this particular fat sits where it sits, and realizing it isn't a vanity story at all. It's a health story. And once I understood that, I felt a little foolish for ever waving it off. So let me show you what I found. Here's the one piece of plumbing you need, and then everything else makes sense. There are 2 kinds of fat around your middle. The first is the soft stuff right under the skin, the kind you can take hold of with your hand. That kind, honestly, is mostly cosmetic, and I'd ask you to make peace with it. The second kind is the one that matters. It's called visceral fat. And visceral fat is simply the fat stored deep inside your belly, packed in around your organs, around your liver and your gut, where you can't pinch it at all. That deep fat behaves differently. It isn't a quiet cushion. It's active. It sends out little chemical messages that stir up low-grade inflammation, which is just your body's alarm system running in the background when it shouldn't be. That's the fat the research keeps circling back to, because that's the fat tied to how your heart and your blood sugar do over the years. So when I talk about your belly tonight, hold this in your mind. I do not mean the part you can grab. I mean the part you can't. This is about what's happening around your organs. It is not about the mirror. And I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, here's another internet health fad telling me everything I enjoy is secretly killing me. Fair. Honestly, fair. I'm tired of that voice too, so let's not do that. Let's just look calmly at 4 ordinary evening habits, and for each one, I'll give you the why and then the swap. And you can decide, like a grown woman, which ones are worth your while. Now, that's the map. Here's the first one, and it's the one most of us do without thinking: the big, late dinner eaten close to bed. Picture the most ordinary evening in the world. Dinner's late because the day got away from you, so you eat a full plate at 8:30. And then by 9:30, you're settled in your chair, maybe a little something sweet after, and by 10:30, you're in bed. I've done exactly this more times than I'd like to admit. Here's what's going on under the surface. When you eat, your body releases a hormone called insulin. And insulin is just the messenger that tells your cells to take sugar out of your blood and either burn it or store it. That's its whole job. The trouble is, late in the evening, when you're winding down and about to lie still for 8 hours, your body is not in burning mode, it's in storing mode. So a big load of food, arriving when the body's least ready to use it, tends to get tucked away. And a fair share of it gets tucked away as that deep belly fat we just talked about, the visceral kind around your organs. Let me be careful here, because I don't want to overstate it. This isn't that one late dinner ruins you. Nobody's body works on a hair trigger like that. It's that this pattern, night after night, year after year, gently tilts the table towards storage. It's the slope, not the cliff. So here's the swap, and it costs you nothing. It actually saves you food. You don't have to skip dinner. Please don't skip dinner. You just move it earlier and make it a little lighter so your body has a couple of hours of being upright and awake to deal with it before you lie down. The realistic version is this: try to close the kitchen a couple of hours before bed. So if you're a 10:30 sleeper, aim to have the plate cleared by around 7:38 and make the evening meal the gentlest one of your day. Lean the protein in the vegetables. Go easy on the big pile of starch at night, because that's the part that drives the insulin surge hardest right before you lie down. Same food you already buy. Same kitchen. You're just changing the clock. That's the whole move. Let me make that concrete before we go on, because I think the why helps it stick. The goal isn't punishment. The goal is to give your body a little daylight gap between eating and sleeping, so the food meets a body that's still up and moving instead of one that's already half asleep. Earlier and lighter, that's habit number 1. Which brings me to the second one, and this is the one I have to police in my own house: the after dinner grazing. This is the kitchen is closed but not really habit. You had a perfectly good dinner. But then there's the television and the long, quiet stretch of evening, and the cupboard's right there, and it isn't really hunger. It's just the hand reaching for the crackers, the handful of this, the little bit of that. I want to be gentle about this, because it's one of the most human things we do. The problem isn't the calories so much as the timing again and the kind of food. Late evening snacking is almost always the sweet, the crunchy, the starchy, and it lands at exactly the hour when your body is least set up to burn it. So you get another little insulin surge. And remember, that's the store it messenger. Right before bed, on top of dinner. Night after night, that's a lot of small storage signals at the worst possible time. And there's a sneaky second part. Eating right up to bedtime tends to chip away at your sleep quality, which, and I'll come to this properly in a minute, is its own belly fat problem. So the late graze hits you twice. Now, the swap. And I'm not going to tell you to white knuckle it, because willpower at 9 p.m. after a long day is a losing game, and anyone who tells you otherwise hasn't lived it. The trick is to make the swap a decision, not a fight. Here's how I'd actually work it into a week. First, give the evening a clear closing time. Pour yourself a cup of something warm with nothing in it. A herbal tea, a plain mug of hot water with a slice of lemon if you like. And let that mug be the signal that the kitchen's shut. Your hands have something to do, your mouth has something to do, and you've told your brain, we're done now. Second, if you genuinely are hungry, and sometimes you genuinely are, reach for something with a little protein instead of the crackers. A few spoonfuls of plain yogurt, a small handful of nuts. Protein doesn't set off that big storage surge the way the sweet and starchy stuff does, and it actually quiets the hunger instead of feeding it. Cheap, already in most kitchens. Let me say that one more carefully, though. A small handful. This is a swap, not a second supper. The aim is to take the edge off, not to start the meal again. Stay with me, because the next one surprised me. It's about what you drink in the evening. This one slips under the radar for almost everyone, and I had it half wrong myself for a long time. It's the evening wind down drink. And I mean the sugary side of it and the alcohol side of it. And I'll be honest about both. Start with the sweet drinks. A lot of us reach for something in the evening that's quietly full of sugar. The sweetened tea, the hot chocolate, the nightcap, that's really dessert. Liquid sugar is a particularly efficient way to get a storage signal because it hits your bloodstream fast with nothing to slow it down. No fiber, no chewing, nothing. And again, at night, that lands when your body's least ready. Now, the alcohol part, and here's where I have to be straight with you, because the internet loves to either ban it outright or pretend it's a health food, and neither is true. A glass of wine in the evening isn't a moral failing, but alcohol does two specific things that matter for this conversation. It's calorie dense, and more importantly, it tends to disrupt the deep part of your sleep. And poor sleep, as you're about to hear, is its own driver of belly fat. So the evening drink can quietly work against your middle through the back door of your sleep, not just the front door of the calories. Here's my honest read of this. And then the swap. I'm not going to tell a grown woman she can't have a glass of wine with her dinner. That's not my place. And I'd roll my eyes at anyone who tried it on me. What I actually do, is two things. One, I keep the sweet liquid out of the late evening entirely, because that's the easiest win there is, and you won't miss it after a week. Swap the sugary nightcap for that plain warm mug we already talked about. Two, if you enjoy a drink, have it earlier with the meal rather than late and alone in front of the television, so it's further from your bedtime and less likely to chew up your sleep. Earlier with food and not as the thing that walks you to bed. That's the whole adjustment. Nothing banned, just moved. Let me build on that, because it lands us right at the big one. Here's where it gets practical, and here's the habit nobody warned you about. Number 4, your sleep itself. I sat with a friend last winter. I'll call her Bernadette, sharp as anything, recently retired, the kind of woman who organizes everyone else's life and never her own. And she said to me, almost as an aside, I'm doing everything right and my middle's gotten thicker anyway, and I don't understand it. So we talked it through. Her dinners were reasonable. She wasn't grazing much. But when I asked her about her sleep, the whole thing came out. She'd been sleeping maybe 5 hours a night for the better part of 2 years. Up at 2, mind racing, scrolling her phone in the dark, finally drifting off near dawn, and then dragging herself up exhausted. And she'd never once connected that to her waistline, because why would she? Nobody had ever told her the two were related. Her doctor had 12 minutes and a waiting room full of people, and the conversation never got there. That is not the doctor's fault, but it meant the most important piece had been sitting right under her nose, unspoken, for 2 years. Here's the connection, and it's the one I most want you to walk away with. When you're short on sleep, or your sleep is broken and shallow, your body runs higher on a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is just your stress hormone, the one that's supposed to spike in the morning to get you going and then settle down by evening so you can rest. When you're underslept, it doesn't settle the way it should. It runs high in the background all day. And cortisol, when it's elevated like that, does something very specific. It tells your body that times are hard and you'd better hold on to fat. and to park that fat right around your middle, around your organs. That's the deep visceral fat again. So you can be eating beautifully and still feel like your middle's working against you because the real lever is the cortisol, and the cortisol is being driven by the lost sleep. And there's a second thread to it I don't want to skip because it's the one that catches people. Short sleep also tips your hunger hormones the wrong way the next day. Let me put that plainly. When you're tired, the signal that tells you you're full gets quieter, and the signal that tells you you're hungry gets louder. So an underslept morning isn't just a tired morning. It's a morning where your body is genuinely nudging you toward more food, and specifically toward the quick, sugary, and starchy kind, because a tired body goes looking for fast fuel. You're not weak-willed when that happens. Your wiring is doing it to you. That's why a run of bad nights so often shows up as a few extra pounds around the middle a couple of weeks later, and people can't trace it back because the cause was the sleep and the effect was the appetite, and nobody ever drew the line between them. Let me be careful and honest, the way I promised I would be. This is studied. The link between short sleep, higher cortisol, and belly fat is real, and it's consistent across the research. But it's a tendency, an overtime thing, not a stopwatch, not a guarantee that one rough night does anything to your waistline. I won't oversell it. Wait, let me put that even more plainly, because I think it's the honest heart of the whole video. One bad night is just a bad night. It's the pattern of months of poor sleep that quietly tilts the table. What I'll say is that of all 4 habits tonight, this is the one I'd fix first, because it quietly powers the other 3. Poor sleep makes you hungrier, makes you reach for the sugary and the starchy, keeps the cortisol high, and wrecks the very rest your body needs to put things right. It's the engine room. Fix the sleep, and the other 3 get easier on their own. And the stakes here aren't fear. They're the opposite. This is the most hopeful one, because sleep is fixable, and fixing it tends to help your energy and your mood and your middle all at once. You're not chasing one thing. You're pulling one lever that moves several. That's a good deal. So here's exactly what to do with that, and none of it costs a penny. Bernadette and I built her a wind down, and it wasn't fancy. No apps, no gadgets, nothing to buy. 5 plain things. First, a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake time. Even on the nights you don't feel like it, even on the mornings you'd love to lie in, because your body's clock loves a routine and rewards you for keeping one. The going to bed at all hours is half of what keeps people stuck. Second, dim the lights in the last hour and get the bright screens out of the bedroom entirely. That bright bluish light from a phone or a tablet tells your brain it's still daytime and holds off the hormone that brings the sleep on. Bernadette's 2 in the morning scrolling wasn't passing the time. It was the thing keeping her awake. The phone charged in the kitchen after that, not on the nightstand. Third, keep the bedroom cool and dark and quiet. A cracked window, a slightly cooler room, helps you sink down into the deep part of the sleep, the slow, heavy part, which is the part that actually lets the cortisol fall. A warm, stuffy room keeps you up in the shallow end of sleep all night, where it does you the least good. Fourth, give your racing mind somewhere to go. Bernadette kept a little pad by the bed, and when the to-do list started up at 2 a.m., she wrote it down instead of running it on a loop. Get it out of your head and onto the paper, and your brain stops guarding it. And fifth, and this ties the whole video together, don't eat that big meal or have that drink right before bed, because both of them sabotage the very deep sleep you're trying to protect. You see how it all loops back on itself. The earlier, lighter dinner isn't just about insulin. It's protecting your sleep, which protects your cortisol, which protects your middle. It's all one circle, and you can step into it at any point. Bernadette gave it a few weeks. She didn't do it perfectly. Nobody does. But she did it most nights. And she told me the first thing that came back wasn't anything to do with her waist at all. It was her energy. She felt like herself in the afternoons again, sharp and steady instead of foggy and dragging. And that, to her, mattered far more than any inch around her middle. That is exactly the right way to keep score. Now, let me slow you down, because this is the part the headlines leave out, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I skipped it. Let me be straight with you. None of this is a cure, and there's no number I can promise you. I cannot tell you that you'll lose a specific amount or that your middle will have or any of that. And anyone who hands you a precise figure like that is reaching for your wallet, not looking out for you. What these 4 swaps do is shift the odds a little over time in the direction you want, toward less of that deep fat around your organs and toward better sleep and steadier energy along the way. That is genuinely worth doing. But it's the careful driver thing. You're improving your chances, not buying a guarantee. And here's the other honest catch. Your body after 60 is also shaped by things that aren't a nighttime habit at all. Your hormones shifted after menopause, and that alone tends to move where your body stores fat. That's not a failure on your part, it's biology. And I want you to hear me say it plainly so you stop blaming yourself for it. Genetics play a part too. So if you do all 4 of these and your middle is still a little softer than it was at 40, that is not you doing it wrong. That's a body that's lived a long life doing exactly what bodies do. The point of all this was never the mirror. It was the deep fat and the sleep and the energy. Keep your eye there. And one more honest word, because I know someone's wondering. None of this means you should be afraid of food at night or treat your evening like a test you keep failing. That kind of anxiety does you no good, arguably more harm than the late snack ever would. This is meant to make your evenings calmer, not more fraught. If any of this starts to feel like a cage, you've taken it too far, and I'd rather you ease off than white knuckle it. So here's your one thing this week. If you do nothing else from this whole video, do this. Move your dinner earlier and lighter and close the kitchen a couple of hours before you sleep. That's it. Not the wine, not the perfect bedtime, not all 4 at once, just the dinner. Eat a little earlier in the evening, eat a little lighter at night. Lean the protein and the vegetables, go gentle on the big starchy pile after dark. And once the plate's cleared, the kitchen's shut, with a warm mug in your hand if that helps you mean it. One change. This week, let me say it once more, slowly, because I know some of you write these down in the comments, and I love that. Earlier dinner, lighter at night, kitchen closed 2 hours before bed. That one swap protects your insulin and your sleep at the same time, which is why I'd start there. Give it 2 or 3 weeks before you judge it, and notice your sleep and your afternoon energy, not the scale. You are not falling apart, and you are not too old for a single bit of this. You've got one body. You've carried it a long, long way, and it is still listening to you, still responding when you give it a little of what it needs. Be good to it this week. The whole thing comes down to small, repeatable, done alongside the people caring for you. And if anything tonight described you in a way that worries you, that's a reason to bring it to your doctor as a good question, not a reason to panic. You're not falling apart. You're being ignored. And we can fix that. Take care of yourself. And I mean that the way a friend means it. I'll see you next time. Tell me in the comments which one you're starting with. I read these, all of them.